the United States of America that represent their interests for the retirement planning products. So that includes life insurance. It includes the opposite of life insurance. Does anyone know what that is? Life insurance is money if we don't live as long as we're supposed to.
Annuities.
The opposite of life insurance is something called a variable annuity that keeps paying us a pension like check if we live longer than we're supposed to, so we don't run out of money. We also represent different non-insurance and annuity represented mutual fund platforms as well. So there's a lot of different stuff we have. GB and I do partner in a business relationship on some of those various things. I've known GB for about almost 10 years at this point. It's been a long time. I love you, GB. Thanks for having me here. You're one of my favorite people that I know and work with. Not to seem insincere in any way, I promise you this is from the heart. I work only with independent financial advisors. My region that I work in is basically just Maryland and District of Columbia. Anyone want to take a guess at how many independent financial planners are in Maryland and DC, just number-wise? As I'm aware, there are 2,200. Okay? How many nights are there in a year? What I'm getting at is how many folks you think I'm doing these types of events with. So I sit down with my staff in September of every year, and we figure out and identify the partnerships with whom we want to do these types of events with. And every year we limit that number to about 36 out of those 2,200 change. If someone wants to do the math on that, is that about the top 1.5%? Is that right? So if you're someone in the room that's working with GB and Neil, or if you're someone that's thinking about it, I tell you they are unique in terms of their value proposition. They're well known not only within this area, but nationally as well. And it's my privilege to be working with you on a day-to-day basis, GB. Thank you. So, information and privacy protection, also known as the identity theft presentation. So we're going to tell you everything you need to know to steal someone's identity and get rich quick, right? That's why we're all here. So GB had just thrown out a couple of statistics. USA Today, I know that's probably not how we all get all of our news. This actually came out today. I think it's a good way to keep our thumb on the pulse of what the average American is seeing. I think we all have that USA Today app on our smartphone. This came out today. Officials warned 500 million financial records have recently been hacked. So a couple of things I just want to read from here. I know this is an incredibly poor presentation for me reading from something, but it's very recent. We're in a day when a person can commit about 15,000 bank robberies sitting in their basement, said Robert Anderson, Executive Assistant Director of the FBI's Criminal Cyber Response and Services Branch. So how many people here run a bank? Or in charge of security for a financial institution? I would guess probably no one, right? What we're going to try to do, and what the goal is today, is not so much to worry about this type of headline when it's JP Morgan getting attacked by Russian hackers, or whether it's Home Depot or Walmart or Target or Office Depot, whatever the office store was that got hacked. There have been several this year where data has been compromised. The goal today is to just give you some things, some practices to start employing in your day-to-day life, and hopefully make yourself and your family a little bit more secure from some of the threats that are out there. Not so much to be thinking about big picture, doom and gloom, JP Morgan getting attacked by Russian hackers, that kind of thing. That's not what we're really here to talk about today, okay? So, we're going to walk through a little bit about just the basics of identity theft, basically how people will try to get your information, how they'll try to profit from it, what you need to be aware of. And then more specifically, we're all in the room because of what reason? Who's the general common thread? It's GB, Neil, Washington Retirement Planning Specialist, right? So we all work with a financial planner. We all have an account, and we have a bank we do our banking on online. So we're also going to focus some of the content on how to actually be a little bit more mindful about what our banking information, our investment information has to do online as well, not just your general information. Does that sound good? So one of the themes that I'm going to keep coming back to in this presentation, and I think you can even title the presentation this, is just the danger of making assumptions. I just wanted to share a story with you all briefly. It's a quick one, I promise. But it is true, and I think it really is going to drive home the the impact of incorrectly making an assumption. My wife and I lived in Baltimore City for about 7.5 years. About a year and a half ago, we moved out of the city and into the county in Severna Park area. So not too far away, about halfway between Baltimore and Annapolis. Very nice neighborhood, very nice neighbors. Our two next door neighbors are very nice people. They have pet rabbits, had pet rabbits. We have pet dogs. So at the time we moved in about a year and a half ago, our two dogs were about 6 months old. They're both rescues. Still working on the discipline. I don't know if anyone's had a rescue animal that's 6 months old. They're not quite groomed and where you wanted to be at that point. So we just had an electric fence put in. So they were still learning that whole system and everything. So my next door neighbor, Steven, he loves these two rabbits that he has. He has names for them, grooms them, he takes them up, takes the enclosure out back so they can get sunlight, natural weather. So for the most part in my job, I'm out meeting with independent financial planners throughout the day, so I'm generally gone most of the day. Sometimes the dogs are outside when my wife is home. I come home one day, about 6 o'clock, June of last year. Our bigger of the two dogs, 60-pound lab mix, Juno, running around with something white in her mouth. Yeah, exactly. Oh no, right? This is bad. So we don't know anyone here. We're trying to make friends. Not a good way to start off, right? So what would any respectable person do if your new dog just killed your new neighbor's rabbit, whom he loves it intensely? What would any responsible person do? They go knock on the door. Steve, I'm sorry. My fault. I know you love the animal. I love animals too. Sorry. She must have broken the fence and killed one of your bunnies. Is that what I did? No. What I did was I took the bunny inside. I shampooed it up with some Perk Plus in the little laundry room sink, and I went and put it back near where the enclosure was and the other bunny was. About 20 minutes went by. I heard a shriek from the backyard. It's Steven. So I casually come walking up back. Steven, gee whiz, what's the matter? Mike, you'll never believe what just happened. One of my bunnies died. And I buried it behind that maple that borders our fence. And I just came back, and it's sitting next to the enclosure, and it's all clean. I don't know what happened. Let's fuck this up. So, a little bit of humor there, true story. We can laugh about it now, sort of. One of the two of us can. That's not bad. But keep in mind, as we're talking about all this stuff, you can always be traced back to just making an incorrect assumption. Okay? So that's one of the things I'm just trying to get people to think about. Don't assume when you use an ATM or hand your credit card to someone that that's okay. Think before you do it. Don't assume when you open an email before checking the sender that's okay. Don't assume that opening an attachment on that email is okay, right? We're going to start talking about some of the stuff that you want to be a little bit more mindful of as you're going about your daily lives. So this presentation is about 3 years old. I will tell you Prudential updates it every 6 months. That being said, some of the data is a year or two old, so when you see the sourcing at the bottom of the screen, usually it's 2012, 2011. Just to point that out in full disclosure, some of these numbers are a year or two old, but they're still relevant nonetheless. Major point being, there's a lot of people in the world. Most people are using the internet today. Anyone want to take a guess how many people are in the United States currently? 325, give or take. So what was it? This number is from 2012, 2 years ago. Not quite 325, a little bit less. So 288 million people are online. So can we all effectively agree that's basically everyone? That's almost 90%. That's a large number. So we've seen a skyrocketing increase in how many people are using the internet to pay their bills, to check their bank account balance, just to do basic daily transactions we were doing in the past. Why is that? It's more convenient. It's more convenient because the things are faster. So I have a phone, an iPhone. This, today, an iPhone 5 is more powerful than the most powerful laptop you could have bought anywhere in the world when the towers went down. So think about that. So this stuff, if you're not someone that's paying your bills and doing the paperless account type management now, you probably will be in the future. you know, the trajectory of the popularity of using the internet for that type of activity has gone up like a hockey stick. So, you know, I know there's always some laggards, is what we call them in the technology cycle, people that are a little bit refusing to move along with the times. If you're not somebody that's using the internet for these types of things now, it's likely you will be sometime in the future. You know, we talked a little bit about it. What do we use the internet for? If we want to check the rate for a CD, a savings account, we go to bankrate.com. If we want to look at product details for an insurance product or investment, we go to that company's website, right? We go to pay a bill, we go to that American Express, we go to American Express, pay our credit bill, MasterCard, whatever it is, right? Is there anyone here who is confident enough in front of the group to put your hand up and say, I refuse to pay all my bills online, I won't do it, all paper? Just out of curiosity, we'll see if there's anyone brave here. 3 people, so three of 45-ish. So proving the point, most of us are online now for much of this stuff. So what is identity theft? Obviously someone attempting to get your information for their use. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the basic stuff. Obviously, people stealing your information through taking it from your trash or stealing your wallet. We all are aware of that type of stuff. But we're going to focus more on the high-tech aspects, some of the things you may not be as aware of that we can also prevent with a little bit of careful attention. One quick thing, the primary data target, Social Security number, if you see anybody talking about identity theft, information security, they'll always make the same statement about your Social Security number. It is the most important piece of information that criminals will try to get from you, right? So if you brought something to write this down, the Social Security number is the holy grail for an identity thief. Do not give that out to anyone unless you absolutely have it. So, internet email fraud obviously exploded over the last few years. GB had mentioned a few different companies that have been hacked recently. I mentioned a few more. One of the things that's interesting, again, this is a 2011 number. It says it affected the lives of over 11.6 million Americans, costing approximately $18 billion in loss. Do you know who the #1 demographic that they're attacking is? 44 to 62, so not quite seniors, but that's a lot of us in the room, right? 44 to 62. And in that demographic, there's over a 90% relevance as to who in that demographic is using the internet to pay bills, to do transactions financially. So this is something that's really become extremely, extremely in our face in our society, right? It's important, we all know that's why we're here. So how do people try to get our identity? We're going to talk about a few different things here. There's got to be a better way to phrase this. Dumpster diving, I thought, was something a term we used in college. I don't know, but something actually taking your garbage, right? We're going to talk a little bit about skimming, something I used to think was called scanning. I'd never heard the word skimming until I looked at this presentation. What phishing is, how they can actually try to change your address so they can have their bill sent to them instead of you. Actually just taking your belongings, as I mentioned before. And then also something about pre-texting, which I was just recently interested in personally. I'll share a quick story. So skimming, this is actually the one that scares me personally the most right now. Does anyone have an idea what skimming is? I'm just curious in asking the group because before I saw that word, I didn't know what it was.
It's better when people, you can just walk by and they can get it electronic.
Yeah, so there's devices, thank you, sir. There are devices people can actually sort of zap scan the magnetic strip on your credit card, get your information, and go buy stuff. Someone whom I know went to go get cash from an ATM. They can put scanners right in those little sleeves, right? Take your PIN number, take your magnetic code, and guess what they have access to now to? You have $10,000 in your checking account, and they've got access to $10,000. That's horrifying. That's really scary to me. So one of the main takeaways from skimming, or scanning as it's called, if you have, like I hold my phone up, which is also my wallet. If you carry around a wallet or a device that carries your cards, you can actually buy wallets and phone cases that carry credit cards that are immune from scanning. That's one thing I didn't know before I actually went in this presentation, right? So if you're going to buy a phone case or a wallet that holds your credit card, you can actually look for that and purchase. Here's another one, common sense. If I'm going to go use an ATM, does it make more sense to actually use the ATM that's attached physically to the Bank of America? Or or to use one that's on the back corner of a grocery store that's, you know, possibly someone who's posing as a security person could go up there in 15 minutes, install something, and walk away, and no one's going to ask a question. This particular story of someone who I do having money taken from their checking account scared me to the point, since I've heard that, I have not done an ATM withdrawal in any ATMs other than the one that's in the Bank of America right whereby I live in Spring Park. So just try to, if you can, go into the bank and also be using locations that are well known, that are attached to a building where, you know, it's going to be very hard for someone to attach that kind of device to it. Next is phishing. So this is sort of that email we get from the Nigerian prince that's trying to get the money over to us. We always get that kind of stuff. This is randomized type attacks. And what they're trying to do is basically get your information by sending out millions and millions of spam mail to hack emails, right? So one of the things that's worth being conscious of, when I was talking about being careful of details, not making assumptions, you get an email from your banking institution or your credit card. We always assume that it came from, like I have credit cards with both American Express and MasterCard. I get an email from one of those two organizations, I think, that says American Express in the title. It came from American Express, right? What can you do to check that?
Look at the email address of the person who sent it.
Right, so this needs to be now something that's commonplace practice every time we open an email, right? When you get an email, you can put the mouse over the sending email and right-click and show details. You can see the actual email address that is sending the email to you, not just the verbiage that's associated with that email address. That's something that very few people are aware of, and it's something that, you know, even when you are aware of it, it's very easy to get out of that habit. So recently, I don't know if anyone here just heard me talking to Judy in front of the room. My wife and I actually just went to Europe. It was my first time going overseas. And we visited 3 countries, Norway, Denmark, and Sweden. We get an email the day before our trip, a couple Wednesdays ago, from one of the hotels we were staying at, the Scandic in Copenhagen. Hey, we need to reconfirm your credit card information. We only have 1 room left. So in an average day, this is not an exaggeration, I generally get in the neighborhood of about 130 emails a day. So I don't process all that stuff during the day. I usually look at that late at night or early in the morning. My wife, hitting the panic button, replied, Mike's MasterCard, here's the number, we're all set, right? So my wife's not stupid, she's a lot smarter than I am. Lovely person, good intents, assumes